I'm back. I'm back. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did an Irish goodbye, and it's been a while. So I won't do this again. Um, Also, welcome to the video. This is the first time we are doing a video podcast. But this is a sign for the future. There's going to be a lot more of this and a lot more of our guests. So we're going to be doing a lot more video content. You're going to see a lot more of me, a lot more of the team, and just more hiking content. So I'm your host, Owen Hamilton, and welcome to the HiiKER podcast. So this week on the show, I'm joined by Chase Tucker, aka Chase Mountains. You might know Chase from YouTube. He's a creator. He does a lot of stuff around strength and mobility in the outdoors, specifically around injury prevention, around mobility, specifically for hiking and spending time in mountains. He hails from Tasmania. I believe it's quite similar weather, at least, to Ireland, maybe a little bit warmer, although today is unseasonably hot, very, very humid in Dublin here on a September afternoon. But since then, from Tasmania, he transitioned out of the corporate life. He now lives in Spain, and he spends a lot of his time in the mountains in Spain, where he creates a lot of his content and runs his company, where he helps thousands of people to feel stronger and feel more confident when exploring in the outdoors. We had a great conversation about life in the outdoors and his inspirations for starting his YouTube channel and then creating an important balance both online and offline. So, without further ado, here's my interview with Chase Tucker, aka Chase Mountains. It's like dinner time there, but what did you have for lunch today?
You're going to be exposing me here. I don't even know what I had. I think I
Are
actually
you
had like I had a really late breakfast. So I had
okay?
like a big bowl of oats around lunchtime with peanut butter, coconut yogurt,
Yes.
chia seeds, hemp seeds, and a few other little things like that. Basically, like a big kind of muesli mix. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. That sounds exactly like my breakfast. I have like it now. My partner Sharon, she makes this. It's almost like a bowl of ice cream.
Mm.
There's oats, there's granola, there's yogurt, there's peanut butter. Like so much peanut butter in it. I don't know how I don't have I'm not obese at this point in time. Like every single morning, it's that big.
There's a lot of
Um,
calories in peanut butter. That's
yeah.
probably got to be my number one thing to take hiking. Actually, to bring peanut butter. I think
Oh yeah. If you
it's
need to top up the calories on a daily basis, you
so
need peanut
good.
butter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So how did it all start? How did Chase Mountains all begin?
Started at a very low point. I don't want to kick
Okay.
the podcast off with a sad story,
That's
but
okay. We just talked about peanut butter, so it's all fun.
we start on high with peanut butter. No, I mean I was in a situation where I was working for like a fairly big corporate company and I wasn't particularly enjoying it and I didn't really see myself kind of continuing there. And I really wanted to do my own thing. I was under a lot of stress and I wasn't really dealing with it very well. And I just kind of rage quit my job and sat around for a couple of weeks and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And around that time I started to get more interested in fitness because I knew that was probably leading me into the situation that I was in mentally, and I was really enjoying it. So what I decided to do, like I always wanted to do stuff in the outdoor industry, and at the time I was working for Cedar Summit, and I literally was talking to a kind of a somewhere between a career advisor and a psychologist, and they asked me like, "What do you feel like doing?" Like, and I said, "Well, I just had this stupid haircut, and I look like a personal trainer, so maybe I should be a personal trainer." And she said, "Why don't you do that?" And I was like, "Well, maybe I will." And then I started thinking about it, and it didn't take me long to decide that that's what I wanted to do. So,
Dress for the
and
job you
from
want.
and from the start, I I wanted to focus on hiking and mountaineering because that's what I was into. And that was about 10 years ago. Well, more. It was just like 2012, 11
Okay.
years ago now. Yeah, the rest is
And
history.
did you follow a path of personal trainer, sports and nutrition? What kind of path did you choose to get to that point?
My path was in biomechanics and like just a standard sort of personal training certificate. I I interned with anyone who I could find who knew anything about posture and biomechanics. And so my path of education was kind of through the back door in a lot of ways, but very practical because I was learning my own body and discovering my own limitations and learning from other people in a very practical way.
Right.
But at the same time, I was, going to school and getting my certificates and that kind of thing. It all happened quite quickly, but I'm a very sort of practical learner, so it worked out quite well.
And at what point then did you kind of connect the dots on creating a channel and like creating videos to help people to rehab or to grow strength and to be more confident in the outdoors?
Luckily enough, from kind of day one, I knew that there was going to be limitations in terms of like how many people I could reach and how much money I could earn and that kind of thing. And the internet or the YouTube was sort of really it was in its infancy when I started. So I just started putting up the exercises that I was doing, and they're terrible. Like I look back at them now and it's cringeworthy. But I just started putting stuff out, and realistically, that was for like a record of these exercises so that I could share them with people because I was coaching people online. And I didn't even know how to make them private, so they were just public. And people started watching them. Before I knew it, I had 2,000 subscribers watching all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should, make a couple of videos about, using trekking poles correctly and just like basic stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how I started.
Yeah, you find that these kind of simple search terms they tend to lead into video content. I'm sure that's probably where a lot of your stuff comes from, is people asking you questions and
Mm.
just looking, what are people looking for? Like, what are the things that people are looking for? And that's probably the makeup of your videos. How do you come up with the ideas for your videos?
I literally just scroll through the comments and see what people
Right.
want to see. And also like I'll look at other people that I follow in other industries and see what they're doing, and I try and keep the amount of influence that I try and keep the amount of content that I'm watching to a minimum, and keep it really sort of good quality, and a lot of it comes from there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with hiking, then I suppose on your YouTube channel you talk about your first hike. You're from Tasmania, and it's known for its landscapes, and it's amazing mountains and trails and everything. So, what was it like growing up there and kind of getting into the outdoors industry?
Tricky. It's
Right.
we had there was a platform for it for sure, but the school that I went to didn't have much of an outdoor program. There was a couple of trips here and there, but it really started just with like one or two friends who said, oh, as soon as they got their license, as soon as they could drive a car, they were like, "Hey, do you want to come to the mountains?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, definitely." And yeah, like I said in that video, that's kind of where things started for me and where I fell in love with going into like these really wild environments that are only like maybe an hour and a half drive from where I grew up. So I was really lucky in that sense that I had access to that stuff. But it's not like I was, in Boy Scouts or anything, even though I probably could have. Yeah.
Well,
And
it's fun. Sorry,
later
go
on
on.
I got into rock climbing, when I actually moved to a bigger city that did actually have like a rock climbing gym,
Hmm.
and that's the one thing that my little small town didn't have and still doesn't have. Even though
Really?
there's good, very good rock climbing within like an hour or two. Yeah.
Well, mate, I wonder is that why they don't have a rock climbing gym? Because it's just like, well, the rock's there, the crag's there.
Yeah.
Let's just all go outside.
Yeah, for sure.
So then, what led you to Spain? How did you end up living in Spain then?
Well, I met a girl, which is
Ah,
usually the reason people move to the other side of the planet. Yeah, my partner's actually she's half Swedish, half Norwegian, but she grew up here in Catalonia. It's complex, and she wanted to come back here and study her masters. And I was kind of at the point where I wanted to get out of my. I had like a physical gym based back in Australia, and I was kind of at the point where I needed to either do the online thing or stay just doing offline and stay in Australia. And I chose to throw all my effort into the online stuff, and I moved here.
okay.
Yeah, that's about 5 years ago.
And I've heard you speak it in a couple of other videos, but your Spanish seems to be pretty good. Is that like a was that before you went, or is that something you picked up along the way?
No. I've got a bit of a knack for picking up accents, and so this is where I get into trouble because my accent is quite good, and people just think I'm Spanish, and then they just let loose on me. But I'm actually pretty terrible at Spanish. I think like because I'm working in English all the time, and I have very little um, exposure to the outside world. Like my interactions and my group of friends are all like very international, so I can certainly get by, but I've got a lot of work to do there. Lots and lots of work to do. And then
Yeah.
there's Catalan on top of that, which is a whole nother thing. It's a bit of a sore point for me, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Um. So just jumping back into hiking, your journey through hiking and through hiking and then through hiking. Uh, did you? What was your first through hike that you ever did?
Well, the first, what I would sort of deem as a through hike is something that's,
Yeah,
it's an
it's
established
a hot
trail.
debate.
Yeah, point A to point B, definitely, I consider it through hiking to be like a long distance kind of journey.
Yeah.
So I guess by that definition, it would be the GR11.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was in, 2020. It was,
Okay.
summer
It's not that long
2020.
ago. Actually,
No, no, no.
I thought you've been doing them for a lot longer than that, but you've done a few. You've done a good few.
Well, by my definition, I've only done the GR11 and the HRP.
And the
I mean,
HRP. Okay.
I've done other stuff,
Yeah.
but it hasn't been, these trails that are well established and defined and that kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah, they're the really only like two through hikes that I would say that I've done. But I
Okay.
go hiking every year for sometimes a week or more. It's
Yeah.
just not what I would really consider a through hike, I suppose.
Yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, it's loose definitions on what a through hike is, and sometimes people
Mm.
want to call what they did as a through hike, and it might not necessarily be what somebody else calls a through hike. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
If you want to call it a through hike, go for it. It doesn't really matter. Like I said a while ago, maybe a year ago, that I was going to stop doing through hiking, and for various different reasons. And it was mainly just because I couldn't, continue to take a month off every year to go walking around. Like I have responsibilities, not just with my business, but other stuff as well. So I guess I can shorten that definition and maybe go. I'd like to go and do the GR20, which
hmm
I could probably now knock that over in 6 or 7 days. And even just like, I would love to come to the UK and do some of those short, like the Cumberland Way and stuff like that, because they're kind of doable and quite short. And, they're not so much about big mountains, but I really just enjoy like walking through villages and beautiful spring weather on a warm day, especially in spring and summer. Like I was trying to explain to my girlfriend the other day about, because she's not a hiker, I was trying to explain like that feeling of putting a backpack on and having everything that you need in the back of your pack, and just the like amazing freedom, like the sense of freedom that you feel when you can just like, I can do whatever I want. I can walk for as long as I want and stop and eat and sleep when I want. Like that's the feeling that I love. Of course, it's nice when there's mountains involved in that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way for me. And I think I'll continue to walk as I grow old, and it would be nice to sort of keep something like the Camino de Santiago, even though it's a very popular hike. You know, that's something that I can do when I'm 90. Hopefully, that's the goal.
Yeah, it's almost like a food tour at that point. You go from town to town, and you're just having these great meals with local villages. But that's definitely on my list as well.
Yeah.
I suppose on that, like the which would be your kind of preference when doing either long distance trails or hiking in general, like hiking solo or hiking with friends or a group?
Ooh, if I had to choose one, I would probably choose doing it with friends. Having said that, I really enjoy the time on my own, and I think, especially when I'm filming, I get weird around like filming people. I feel like they don't want to be filmed or they don't want to be on my YouTube channel or whatever. So if I am planning on making a film, often I'll do that as a solo trip. But there's nothing like the relationships that you build when you're in that environment with people, and I think that's an important part of it. And I did those 2 crossings of the Pyrenees, and the majority of that was alone. And I feel like that time can be very useful for almost anyone, but it was definitely useful for me. But I think filming it certainly took away a certain part of the joy of being solo, which I'm quite wary of now. I would very much like to go and do something and not film it and just be a bit selfish and not share it with anyone.
Because funny that we mentioned before this, you were on the Craig Adams podcast, and that's something that I always, I suppose, kind of perplexes me, is that he does so many of these solo hikes where he records them, and they're fantastic videos. There's no argument there, but I don't know, maybe he has some sort of drone that comes in and picks up the camera, or he has it down to a T. I don't know what he does, but I think that's a level of production precision that I don't think I would ever be able to achieve. Having to run back and get your camera, do it again, and make sure you have the right shot.
He's definitely got a formula and he's got a system, and knowing I'm not his best friend, but I know the guy reasonably well, and like he's an organized guy and he has systems, and I think he found something that he enjoyed and he found something that people loved, and he's just really dialed in on that. So yeah, he seems to be getting out a lot, but at the same time, I think there's always this perception when you see photos and videos from like influencers that seem like they're out all the time. But I think he's probably spending a lot of time just chilling at home as well, like I am.
Well, he has to edit his videos as well.
Yeah, someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do the hard work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably hard to pick a favorite, but like, what out of the 2 long distance trails that you've done, like, is there either of those that have been favorite? I suppose it's almost like picking your favorite kid if you had one.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. I think I had a better time on the GR11 because we had a really good trail family, and I don't know, it was just, I have fonder memories of it. The HRP, there was a couple of, towards the end of the HRP, I was kind of done with it, and I was doing, 45 kilometer days, and I was hiking well into the night. I missed my girlfriend. I wanted to get home, and I was hiking until like 2:00 in the morning on some of these days. So I was just kind of punishing myself towards the end of it, and I don't look back on that very fondly. I did the HRP during COVID, and there was all these dramas with crossing borders. that's a long story that I'll tell one day. But that also kind of, I definitely looked more fondly back on the GR11.
Right. And what, like, in terms of like challenging, like, are they both kind of the same level of difficulty? Like, I just seeing some of the videos from the HRP, it looked like
Hmm.
pretty hardcore in some places.
Yeah, it does. It does get into like glaciated terrain for a couple of days. It's also just generally more exposed, generally at a higher altitude. I think the ascent and descent is actually around the same,
Hmm.
and then there's also more sort of navigation challenges. But I don't know, like I've never really struggled with navigation at all.
Okay.
So you just follow the dots. So yeah, I would say that yeah, the HRP is definitely more physically demanding, and the GR11 is a little more kind of like it's more like a stroll, but it's still very hard
Yeah, yeah.
physically. Mm.
And have you got any plans then for any further like long distance trails, or is it more kind of all around
Mm.
outdoorness?
All around outdoorness is definitely my thing. Like I said, I'd like to do the GR20. I would definitely like to do the GR10. I think that's kind of like the triple crown of the Pyrenees. I've done two. I'd like to do the GR10 to tick all three off. But yeah, never say never. I think as I get older and as I sort of dedicate more time to myself, then I will certainly go back to doing some more long distance stuff. But I think, yeah, I like I literally do every mountain sport there is almost. Like I like rock climbing, I like mountaineering, I like skiing, ski touring. So I kind of spread myself out throughout the year doing all this stuff and hiking. I think as much as I tend to focus on that in my content
Hmm.
because I think that's probably what my reader base wants to see or my viewership wants to see. There's lots of other stuff that I do that I don't put out there.
Well, I suppose from a content point of view, it is a lot more accessible. Like anybody can
Mm,
watch a video about hiking and kind of get it. You know, they can
mm,
understand. But a lot of your obviously a lot of your videos are around rehab. They're around building strength for hiking and
mm.
for through hiking.
Yeah,
Are you that rigorous with your own kind of training when it comes to
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I mean, I go through phases. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not going to sit here and pretend like I've never had a day off or I've never felt like crap and not done a workout because it happens all the time. But I think I can't sit here and say what I say without actually doing the
doing it.
thing.
Yeah,
And during those times where I'm not doing the thing, my God, do I feel terrible about myself because there's so much like I feel disingenuous. So
yeah,
it only takes me a day or two of that to be like, oh, I'm back
yeah, yeah,
because it's such an important part of my life. And also just it's physical and mental hygiene, really. Um, that's kind of what I'm trying to promote and encourage people to do is to think about fitness not as something to do 6 weeks before your trip,
Hmm.
but rather, yeah, a hygiene that is important to maintaining the level of health and vitality that you want, and as a way of feeling good all the time.
Yeah. So I guess is it having just an open mind to the various different activities that you do, and then kind of building like an exercise regime around that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I will I don't track like how many kilometers I hike, for example, but I am doing something every day, whether it's working on my feet or my posture or building strength or running. That's I'm kind of at a point where I don't need to train to go hiking. It's more about just finding more balance in my body, understanding it a little bit more, and working on the niggles and figuring out things that take a long time or things that are new to me. Like I'm really into amplifying my diaphragm and breathing really well and doing lots of like conscious breath work and working on my feet. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And I think probably people assuming that I'm in the gym, like deadlifting and going nuts on some crazy workout, but most of the time I'm just like fiddling with my toes.
That reminds me of this. You may be familiar with a guy called David Gray, David Gray Rehab. He's kind of well known Irish physiotherapist and sports physiotherapist. But yeah, like that, he does the exact same thing. Like people think that he's in the gym every single day, but he's actually just like pressing little parts of his hand every day just to figure where is it? Where is the point? Okay, there it is. I got it.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, there's a healthy amount of lifting heavy weights, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned running there. Is that something that like you see yourself taking up, like, or well, sorry, you obviously taking it up, but have you ever done trail running or like endurance running, ultra running?
I've done a hell of a lot of running in the mountains, but I've never done anything like competitively. Maybe that's a personality fault of mine that I'm just not competitive enough, or I don't. I'm just not really interested in like beating people and racing against the time. But I do really enjoy just putting running shoes on and carrying a light trail running pack and just running in the mountains. That's one of my favorite things to do. And part of the reason why I sort of transitioned into more ultralight is because I'm getting an ultralight enough now that it's basically like fast packing or whatever you want to call it, somewhere between through hiking and fast packing. And so, yeah, like a lot of the time I am actually running, especially downhill. Like I can cruise down hills and utilize gravity to get a bit more speed.
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah. I
I
really enjoy
noticed
it.
that actually in one of your HRP videos, I just saw you running downhill, and like the packs they're not small packs, like they're still big enough packs, but you're definitely not like walking down a hill at all.
No, I mean, I find it easier a lot of the time to run downhill. And yeah, the lighter the pack gets, the easier that becomes. But if I wasn't taking a camera and a tripod, it would be even lighter. that would be nice.
Yeah, that was like us in the early days of HiiKER when we're trying to record content for our social media and for our YouTube, like carrying around the early drone, the big DJI drones that you had to have in like a box like this big. Like, why did I choose this? Like Paul, our founder, he went and did the Tour de Mont Blanc and he carried that on across the entire thing. Guy's a lunatic.
Yeah. Commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commitment to the shot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people now that are just absolutely dominating in terms of making cinematic hiking videos. I see a new person every day on YouTube making these incredible videos just with like buttery footage and incredibly high quality cameras and lenses. And, they've got like 1,000 subscribers or something. I'm like, why isn't this blowing up? Like, why isn't anyone watching this? So I think it's more about like engaging people in a story. And I think a lot of these kind of creators are just getting incredibly cinematic shots and beautiful imagery, but missing that element of like human connection. And my videos are certainly not cinematic. I try my best, but the storytelling element, even though I'm not putting a lot of effort into that, just like having characters and having things occur, and I just try my best to sort of capture what's actually happening with people, and that's when people engage with your stuff, because you're telling a story and they're sort of following that rather than just looking at the most beautiful footage ever. It'd be nice to have and I think Craig hits both of those right in the middle. Like, he's obviously incredibly good as a videographer and very good storytelling as well. And I'm sure there's many, many others that are doing the same.
Yeah, I think Craig, I suppose he did come in at an early stage. He's almost like one of the first to do this on YouTube and the scale that he did it at. But he does tell a story with his videography as well. It's not just the images; it's the story of him doing the trail and doing the hike. And I definitely get that from his videos and from your videos as well. I definitely get that, like the human story. If we bring it to hiking, I don't know if you remember or have heard of Alina Osborne.
Yeah. We chat sometimes.
Yeah,
She's
yes,
very good.
she's very good, but
Very
storyteller extraordinaire. Like she is like the master at this, And her video about the PCT is literally called "It Is the People," and it's about the people that you meet. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier on. The best journeys are those ones. The best adventures are the ones that are shared, and the ones that you meet people either along the way, or they're people that you thought you knew and now know better. And I think when people see that, they resonate with it much more than they would just looking at a pretty video. Everyone can have a nice screensaver, but it's nice to have a story to go along with.
Yeah, it's a reason to come back to it to find out what happens. I think like the hard part about that is as someone who's capturing something, should you be trying to capture the drama or create drama or think about, what could possibly be entertaining for people? And then on the flip side of that is, can I actually be present and enjoy the process along the way? And I think that's something that I've sort of really struggled with, not getting sucked into trying to film all the time and rather just enjoying what's actually happening and maybe trying to just get a clip here and there and figure out how to tell the story later. Because when you try and make things happen, it feels not right. And if you're trying to film everything, then you lose a lot of the actual experience for yourself. Yeah, tricky.
Yeah, very tricky. And I've only dabbled in it myself, and I don't know if I'll go any further into it. It doesn't seem like anybody's like truly figured it out, because the algorithms change all the time, and what audiences are interested in. Look at like the rise of TikTok. That's in a lot of ways is taking over from Google search. People are searching TikTok for content. So, and how people engage with TikTok is different to how they engage with YouTube or Google or Instagram or any other channel. So it's an ever evolving dilemma that you need to figure out. I suppose somebody that is getting into YouTube or into content creation for the first time, is there any advice that you would give them?
Be as authentically yourself as humanly possible and get comfortable on camera. And the only way you're going to do that is just putting content out. Like film it and put it out. Like it's going to be terrible. You're going to cringe.
Yeah.
But that's the only way to do it. You just need practice and you need to keep doing it regularly.
Yeah.
That's my advice. And there's nothing wrong with copying other people and emulating other people and, looking at what works and becoming a bit of an analyst in a way as well.
Well, that's creativity. Look, that's how music is created. Like that's how art is created. People emulate what they see around them, what other people are doing and they know that is something that people like. So I'm going to create something just like that, but I'm going to put my own flavor on it. So I think that's pretty good advice. And then I suppose people getting into hiking for the first time, or like, it's hard to, whenever I say that, I'm like getting into hiking for the first time, people that I want to go out and like start to actually do more serious hikes. Is there any advice that you give to those people?
Don't go climbing up anything you can't climb down.
Yeah.
Or hiking up anything you can't hike down.
Where were you 4 years ago? Me.
I think that's probably the best piece of advice I can offer in that situation. It's very difficult because, you know, are we talking about Alaska?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Or are we talking about, um, the lower hills of the UK? Those two things are very different.
Hmm.
I think everything comes from experience, and like you will make mistakes and you will learn. Don't try and learn everything on the internet before you go, because it's not going to happen. Like,
Hmm.
practical advice is, I mean, it's great. I like giving actionable advice to people, but it's certainly not the be all and end all. You need to actually experience it yourself in order to really obtain that information and learn the lesson for yourself. All the advice in the world is, you can contain all of this knowledge, but unless you personify that knowledge by actually getting out and doing it, then it's likely you'll not really retain it and actually own that knowledge.
So make mistakes.
Yeah, and don't be scared of making mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much all I do on my. Well, I do lots of stuff, but a lot of what I do on my channel is just like sharing the dumb things that I've done in the mountains or otherwise, and I'll continue to do that because I'll continue to make mistakes always, um, because I'm pushing myself and going out and probably doing things that I shouldn't a lot of the time. But that's kind of part and parcel of the adventure. I like pushing my physical limits and and also the limits of what people sort of expect hiking is or climbing is, because that's just what I found to be the best way to learn, like learn my limits, learn my body, and also like understand the geography as well. When you are in like relatively sketchy sort of environments, you start to understand what rotten rock feels like. You start to understand what hollow, unstable ice or snow feels like. And until you're in that situation, you're not going to recognize those dangers. Like, you have to sort of be there and feel it and touch it in order for you to recognize those things. It's not something you can learn on the internet, really.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you can't learn it in an app. You can't learn it from social media. You literally have to
No.
be there and do it and make the mistake. Hopefully, it's not too big of a mistake. But think on the subject of mistakes, like I think
Mm.
I have a huge YouTube career ahead of me because I've made so many
Yeah.
dumb, silly mistakes over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're getting to the time here. I'm sure I have like 20 other questions, but I tend to like knock it off around 35 minutes,
Yeah.
just because people get bored.
Yeah.
It's the perfect podcast length. Chase, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And if you're listening to this or you're watching this, be sure to go onto Chase's YouTube channel. He's got tons of content around building strength, rehab, everything to help you to be more prepared in the outdoors. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everything you do and catching you up, hopefully catching up to you on the GR20. It is a goal of mine for this year as well. So maybe we
Mm.
might be able to do that.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd be happy to come back and chat to you another time as well. Thanks for the invite. It's always nice.
Nice and Chase. Cheers.
Thanks, Owen.